yeah. There's just one thing I wanna say. The really real, yo. There's just one thing I wanna say.
All right, Shabbat Shalom. Once again, got to play a couple of. Let me get another video clip in here. All right, this old cool G rap thing I have on here. Just testing this stuff out, testing this videos and stuff out right here. So let's see, play this other one here. See how this sound. We'll take a look at it later.
Ghetto style. Talk that shit. Ghetto style. Talk that shit. Ghetto style. Ghetto style. Talk that shit. Ghetto style. Ghetto style. Talk that shit. Ghetto style. Ghetto style. Talk that shit. Ghetto style.
Yep, just again testing this out. One last one here before we get started. One last one here. All right, and we're going to get started. I want to see just how this look later on. All right.
The Bible and the Hebrew Israelites.
And then start all over again clean. Niggas, you crazy.
All right, let's go. All right, let me get my camera on here. We're about to jump into this thing here. Again, Shabbat Shalom. Got my camera on. Who were the wise men / Magi? Matthew chapter 2. This would be the build-up of Matthew chapter 2. I don't do breakdowns. I do build-up. I'm not trying to break you down. I'm trying to build you up. So I do build-up. So this is the build-up of Matthew the 2nd chapter. Who were the wise men / Magi? All right, so my camera's on. I'm about to get it off, cut it off, get to my notes, come back home, finish up this video here. So again, Shabbat Shalom to everyone that's going to listen to this video. You can leave your comments in the comment section, and I get the response. I can respond to it. All right, so let's get right to it. Again, get the camera off and let me start sharing my screen. All right, 1 second here. Come here. So we're in the book of Matthew chapter 2, starting at verse 1. Now when Jesus was born in Bethlehem of Judea in the days of Herod the king, behold, there came wise men from Magi from the east to Jerusalem, saying, where is he that is born King of the Jews? For we have seen his star in the east and were come to worship him. So we see they have seen his star, and the purpose of them coming there just to worship him. Verse 3, when Herod the king had heard these things, he was troubled, and all Jerusalem with him. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and get some background history there. Then we're going to come back and finish this. All right, so these wise men came seeking he who was born King of the Jews, and they have seen his star in the east, and they have come to worship him. And again, Herod heard these things. He was troubled. Not only him, but all Jerusalem with him. All right, I want to cover these things here, and then I want to come back and continue in verse 4. Okay. All right, so let me stop sharing here. We're going to come back. So we here. All right. Dealing with the priesthood of the Medes. Okay, at this time there is a Parthian empire that's rivaling the Roman Empire. We don't hear too much about them because they're hiding the information about the Persian Empire that rivaled the Roman Empire. They did not rule the entire world. All right. So once they go into the part of Mesopotamia and the Euphrates and the area, they didn't rule that area over there. That was all ruled by the Persian Empire. All right. So the Persian and Mede Empire, right? They still continued afterwards on that side of the territory. So there was a priesthood in the Persian and Mede Empire. So on the priesthood of the Medes, the ancient Magi were a hereditary priesthood of the Medes, known today as the Kurds, accredited with profound and extraordinary religious knowledge after some Magi who had been attached to the Median court, proved to be expert in the interpretation of dreams. Darius the Great established them over the state religion of Persia. Contrary to popular belief, the Magi were not originally followers of Zoroaster. That all came later. Okay, so this was dealing with Daniel. He was the one that was made ruler over the state and over the religion of the Persians. To some degree, he was made ruler over the state and over the Magi. Okay, and of course he's going to have influence on some of the religion, but they still kind of was dealing with paganism. All right, so let me come 1 second here. I want to pull this stuff so I can read that out the Bible, so we can see this is exactly what the Bible says, to confirm exactly what I am saying when it comes to the book of I'm going to get right to the main points here. Right, Daniel chapter 2, verse 48. I want to get right to the points here. All right, let me come back and I'm going to share my screen. I'm going to come right back to it. 1 second here. Share. So Daniel chapter 2, verse 48 says, Then the king made Daniel a great man and gave him many great gifts and made him ruler over the whole province of Babylon and chief of the governors over all the wise men of Babylon. So this we hear in the Babylonian Empire. So I'm going to get to the point now, going into the Persian and Mede Empire. Okay, so we see even from the Babylonian Empire, he was made ruler over the whole province of Babylon and the chief governors over all the wise men of Babylon. From there, I want to come to Daniel chapter 4, verse 8 and 9. Daniel chapter 4, verse 8 and verse 9. It says, But at last Daniel came before me, whose name is Belshazzar, according to the name of my God, and in who is the spirit of the holy gods. And before him I told the dream, saying, O Belshazzar, master of the magicians, because I know that the spirit of the holy gods is in thee, and no secret troubleth thee. Tell me the vision of my dream, that I have seen the interpretation thereof. So we see here he's again being the master of the magician of the Magi. Okay, this is what it is. I want to come all the way down into the Persian and Mede Empire. I'm going to come to the 6th chapter of Daniel. And let me get down to the 21st verse. Let me read 21 down to 28. Let's get right to the point. This is when he was tossed into the lion's den, because after the Persians took over, their regime wanted to, let me get that right quick. They wanted to get rid of Daniel. It says, then these men assembled and found Daniel praying and making supplication before his God. Then they came near and spake before the king concerning the king's decree, that has thou not signed the decree that every man It shall ask a petition any god or man within 30 days, save of thee, O king, shall cast into the den of lions. And the king answered and said, the thing is true, according to the law of the Mede and Persians, which alter it not. So Daniel was cast into it because of that. These men wanted to get rid of Daniel. Here in verse 6. Verse 5, then said these men, we shall not find any occasion against this Daniel, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. See, this is way back then. We see that these people don't have no angle on the nation of Israel. The only angle is to get us to break the laws of our God. Other than that, they have no win whatsoever. So this is what these men was conspiring to do. And they said the king made a decree that anyone acting in petition of any god should be cast into the lion den, and the king signed it. And so Daniel was in there. So we're going to come down to verse 21. Then said Daniel unto the king, after he was cast into the lion's den, and then he was saved. O king, live forever. My God have sent his angel and have shut the lion's mouth, that they have not hurt me, for as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. Then was the king exceedingly glad for him, and commanded that they should take Daniel up out of the den. So Daniel was taken up out of the den, and no manner of hurt was found upon him, because he believed in his God. There you go. Once again, you got to believe, not just talk. Daniel believed went all the way to death. Verse 24. And the king commanded, and they brought those men which had accused Daniel, and they cast them in the den of lions. Them, their children, and their wives. See that? They wanted to do that to Daniel, but then what happened to Daniel actually happened to them. Okay? They was cast in there, their children and their wives. And the lions had a mastery of them, and break all their bones in pieces, or ever they came at the bottom of the den. So we see why, according to the Persian and Medes, they didn't just do those men, they did their children and their wives. You know, the Most High said in our law that the children ain't gonna die for the sins of the father, according to what the Most High have decreed. Okay. Verse 25, then King Darius wrote unto all people, nation, language that dwell in all the earth, peace be multiplied to you. I make a decree that in every dominion of my kingdom, men tremble and fear before the God of Daniel. See that? For it is the living God, and steadfast forever, and his kingdom, that which shall not be destroyed, and his dominion shall be even unto the end. He delivereth and rescueth, and he worketh signs and wonders in heaven and in earth, who have delivered Daniel from the power of the lion. So this Daniel prospered in the reign of Darius and in the reign of Cyrus the Persian. So he would still had his position all the way into the Persian and Mede Empire. Okay, so I want to come here to get. All right, let me go on back. Let me stop sharing here now and go back, continue where I left off at here. So in the Persian priesthood, they had a dual capacity whereby civil and political council was invested with them, with their authority. That the Magi became the supreme priestly caste in the Persian Empire and continued to be prominent during the subsequent Seleucid and Parthian and Sasanian periods. Okay, so you have, after the Persian and Mede Empire, you had Alexander comes in, and then his kingdom was split, and Seleucus, one of his general, the Magi still continued through that period into the Parthian, Persian period, and also onto the Sasanian periods as well. Afterward, they extended all the way into about 6 something AD, because right after them, that's when you get the Islamic empire start to come in after them. All right, they continue to around 6 something, and the Islamic empire comes in around end of that around 700. All right, so now the role of Daniel One of the titles of Daniel was Rab Mag, the chief of the Magi. His unusual career included being a principal administrator in two world empires, the Babylonian and the subsequent Persian Empire. When Darius appointed him a Jew over the previously hereditary Median priesthood, the resulting persecutions, the resulting repercussions led to the plots involving the ordeal in the lines then which I just read. Daniel apparently entrusted a messianic vision to be announced in due time by a star to a secret sect of Magi for its eventual fulfillment. But first, let's review some historical background here. Okay, so we see that it's clear that Daniel was the one given the prophecies. He was over these men. Some of these men was also Israelites with him, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, and probably other unnamed men as well, because we know that these men was eunuchs, but the other subsequent men outside of that was probably not eunuchs as well, and passed the information down to that Magi priesthood, and that's why you see these Magi are coming down. Since the days of Daniel, the fortunes of both Persia and the Jewish nation had been closely intertwined. Both nations had in turn fallen under Seleucid domination in the wake of Alexander's conquest. Subsequently, both had regained their independence. The Jews under the Maccabean leadership and the Persian under the dominating ruling group within the Parthian Empire. It was at this time that the Magi, in their dual priestly and governmental office, composed of the upper house of the Council of the Magatines, form from which we get the term magistrates, whose duties included the absolute choice and election of the king of the realm. So these men was the one that chose the king of the realm. So we see why these men was coming down to find the king of the Jews. We're going to get more information on that. It was therefore a group of Parthian kingmakers who entered Jerusalem in the latter days of the reign of Herod. Herod's reaction was understandably one of fear when one considers the background of the Roman-Parthian rivalry that prevailed during this time. So I'm going to some of that. So we kind of see when the text says that he was troubled and all Jerusalem with him. Okay, Rome is on the rise now. Pompey, the first Roman conqueror of Jerusalem in 63 BC, had attacked the Armenian outpost of Parthia. In 55 BC, Crassus led Roman legions in sacking Jerusalem and in a subsequent attack on Parthia proper. The Romans were decisively defeated at the Battle of Carrhae, Carrhae, with the loss of 30,000 troops, including their commander. The Parthian counterattacked with a token invasion of Armenian, Syrian, and Palestine. Nominal Roman rule was reestablished under Antipater, which is the father of Herod, who in his turn retreated before another Parthian invasion that was in 40 BC. Mark Antony reestablished Roman sovereignty in 37 BC, and like Crassus before him, also embarked on a similarly ill-fated Parthian expedition. So he died when he tried to go against the Parthian. His disastrous retreat was followed by another wave of invading Parthians, which swept all Roman opposition completely out of Palestine, including Herod himself, who fled to Alexandria and then he fled to Rome. With Parthian collaboration, Jewish sovereignty was restored, and Jerusalem was fortified with a Jewish garrison. Herod at this time had secured from Augustus Caesar the title of King of the Jews. However, it was not for 3 years, including a 5-month siege by Roman troops. He's coming back trying to take over now, that Herod was able to occupy his own capital. Herod had thus gained the throne of a rebellious buffer state, which was situated between two mighty contending empires, which was the Rome and the Parthians, the Persian. At any time in his own at any time his own subjects might conspire to bring the Parthian to their aid. At the time of the birth of Christ, Herod may have been close to his final illness because he was sick. Augustus also was aged, and Rome, since the retirement of Tiberius, was without an experienced military commander. So pro-Parthian Armenia was fomenting revolts against Rome, which was successfully accomplished within 2 years. Okay, now we're going to tension in Parthia. So in Parthia, there was a situation going on there, and this is what led to the wise men coming to Jerusalem, the Magi coming to Jerusalem for the Messiah, coming to worship or looking for the King of the Jews. The time was ripe for another Parthian invasion of the buffer provinces, except for the fact that Parthia itself was racked by eternal dissension. Phraates the fourth, an unpopular and aging king, had once been deposed, and it was not improbable that the Persian Magi were already involved in the political maneuvering requisite to compose his successor. It was conceivable that the Magi might be taking advantage of the king's lack of popularity to further their own interests with the establishment of a new dynasty, which could have been implemented if a sufficiently strong contender could be found. So they were trying to find someone to contend with it, but it got to be a strong one. At this time, it was entirely conceivable that the messianic prophecies of the Old Testament, culminating in the writings of Daniel, which was passed down to them, one of their own magicians, Magi, was of profound motivating significance. The promise of a divinely imposed worldly dominating at the hands of a Jewish monarch might be more than an acceptable to these Magi. Their own Persian and Median history was studied with Jewish nobles, ministers, and counselors. Okay, that's going back into Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. And in the great Achaemenid days, some of the kings themselves had Jewish blood with them. So I'm not going off into the Achaemenid days and that particular rule and reign. Dealing with the entrance of the Magi into Jerusalem, continuing here in Matthew 2nd chapter. So in Jerusalem, the sudden appearance of the Magi, probably traveling in force with an imaginable oriental pomp in accordance by an adequate cavalry. The cavalry was as at least of 1,000 men, according to the records of the Persians, the Parthian. These men traveled with at least 1,000 cavalry with them, escorted to ensure their safe penetration of Roman territory. Certainly alarmed Herod and the populace of Jerusalem. Again, we read that in Matthew chapter 2, verse 3. It would seem as if these Magi were attempting to penetrate a border incident which could bring swift reprisal from Parthian armies. Their request of Herod regarding the one who has to be the king of the Jews has a calculated insult to him, a non-Jew who had contrived and bribed his way into that office. So him hearing that is definitely going to be an insult to Herod. These men coming in here with these infantry trying to find the king of the Jews when he has that title already is an offense to him, but he has to tread lightly because it might be an all-out war again against the Romans and the Persian. And he has to be careful in how he responds and how he moves. Okay? Because he doesn't want it, because Rome doesn't want wars, especially with the Parthians, because they've been losing. Right? So now Herod, consulting his scribes, Herod discovered from the prophecies of the Tanakh that the promised one, the Messiah, would be born in Bethlehem. Hiding his concern and expressing sincere interest, Herod requests them to keep him informed. Right? After finding the babe and presenting their prophetic gifts. We're gonna read that. I'm gonna read about the gifts and stuff now. The Magi being warned in a dream, departed to their own country, ignoring Herod's request about keeping him informed. Okay, so they went back. Going back into Daniel and his role in this whole messianic prophecy. Living 6 centuries before the birth of Christ, Daniel certainly received an incredible number of messianic prophecies, in addition to several overviews of all the Gentile world history. So we don't understand the book of Daniel. He has gotten a lot of information, not only about the Messiah coming in the first century, but a lot about all these other Gentile kingdoms that would rise also after the Babylonians. The angel Gabriel told him the precise day that Jesus would be present himself as king to Jerusalem. It is interesting that Daniel's finding of the secret sect of the Magi also had a role in having these prominent Gentiles, if they were Gentile, it could have been Israelites, presenting gifts at the birth of the Messiah. These gifts came right on time because they had to flee to Egypt, and they need these gifts for the travel and to maintain their lifestyle. Okay, the last part here, the gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh were also prophetic, speaking of our Lord's office, right, of king, of priest, and savior. But of course, the last part would be him having to die. Gold speaks of his kingdom. Frankincense was a spice used in priestly duties. We just speak of his priestly office. And myrrh was an embalming ointment anticipating of his death. Okay. And also in the millennium, when he becomes king priest again, he's also going to receive gold and frankincense, but he's not going to receive any myrrh because there's no more death. He's going to live forever. All right. So let me come back now to and finish off Matthew and come on down. There's other stuff in here I want to speak on in Matthew, the 2nd chapter as well. But the main focus is of the Magi. So we've seen that the Magi, the descendants of the wise men or the Magi, the magicians that Daniel was over. And clearly this is how they kind of have an understanding of when the Messiah would be born. And we see that they was led. Let me come back to Matthew chapter 2. And I'm now at verse 4. And when he had gathered all the chief priests and scribes of the people together, he demanded of them where Christ should be born. And they said unto him, in Bethlehem of Judea, for thus it is written by the prophet Micah. And thou, Bethlehem, in the land of Judea, are not the least among the princes of Judah, for out of thee shall come a governor that shall rule my people Israel. Then Herod, when he had privately called the wise men, inquired of them diligently what time the star appeared. And he sent them to Bethlehem and said, go and search diligently for the child. And when ye found him, bring me word again that I may come worship him also. When they had departed the king, when they had heard the king, they departed. And lo, the star which they saw in the east went before them till it came and stood over where the young child was. So we see that they were being led. Stars don't move like this. They don't move and then stop in a particular position over where this child was. So this was clearly not no star in heaven. This was clearly some kind of angelic being or some kind of a being in an angelic ship that's guiding them over to where the child was. So they're being led by the heavens. They're being led by the Most High to the child for a specific reason, because they need Mary and Joseph. They need these things because they're getting ready to flee to Egypt. When they saw the star, they rejoiced with exceeding great joy. And when they were come into the house, they saw the young child with Mary his mother, and fell down and worshiped him. And when they had opened their treasures, they presented unto him gold, frankincense, and myrrh. We went over what all of those meant represented. So verse 11 says that they came into a house. So he was not in a manger, right? So again, I want to cover this part here about, the Christians. They be showing this scene here, the three wise men with him in the manger somewhere. All right. And according to the text here, it says that he was in the house. He was not in no manger here when the wise man came. Right. And he was at this time was about 2 years old. He had not just been born by Mary. But the scene of Christianity today is false. They're trying to make it seem like the wise man came when he was just birthed by Mary not too long. And he was in a manger. But again, this clearly shows that he was not. So they don't even understand simple stuff within the Bible. When the wise man came, that he was in a house. And it was not three wise men. Three treasures doesn't mean three wise men. All right. Continuing here, verse 12. And being warned of the Most High, of God, in a dream, that they should not return unto Herod, they departed to their own country another way. So they came to worship him, and they was coming to get him, to prep him, or to say, well, we come in to worship him and establish a rapport with him because we want him to be king back in Persia because of the situation back there in Persia was messed up. And obviously the Most High let him know that this man has something to do here in Jerusalem. He has to come and teach the people here and die here and fulfill all the other prophecies in the Bible. So we see that the Most High was working with these men. So it's all probable that these men, or more likely these men, are Israelites from the tribe of Levi. The Levites were the one who anointed the king. The Levites was the one who dealt with the king. They was the one between the king and God. These men were clearly being led by God, and God would talk to them in a dream. And this goes back to all this goes all the way back to the book of Numbers. The Most High talked about if there a prophet among you, the Lord would talk to him. Let me get that right quick. This is consistent in Numbers, the 12th chapter. The Lord says this. Okay. Going to Numbers chapter 12, start at verse 6. Start at verse 5. And the Lord came down in a pillar of cloud and stood in the door of the tabernacle and called Aaron, Miriam, and they both came forth. And he said, hear now my words. If there be a prophet among you, I, the Lord, will make myself, I, the Lord, will make myself known unto him in a vision, and I will speak unto him, in a dream. So this is the way that the Lord has spoken to these Magi in a dream. And these men these men sound like they were prophets, at least, Levites, because these people here that we speaking to here, they were all Levite. Aaron is a Levite and Moses is a Levite. Okay. So he's saying how he will talk to a prophet that's among them, or a prophet from their nation. So these Magi were most likely Levites and or prophets, or both. Okay. Clearly from what was going on. Let me come back into Matthew chapter 2 and verse 13. And when they were departed, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared to Joseph in a dream, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother and flee into Egypt, and be thou there until I bring thee word, for Herod will seek the young child to destroy him. So now they have money, what they need for the travel, and they're being warned out to leave and go to Egypt. When he rose, he took the young child and his mother by night and departed into Egypt. So the language here is clear again, that when Joseph arose, he took the young child, which is Hamashiach, and his mother. He didn't take the young child and he's the father. The text is not saying that Joseph is the father. We're going to read this a few more times again. The text is clearly showing you the young child and his mother. It's not identifying Joseph as the father whatsoever in the second chapter of Matthew, showing consistency that the first chapter, without a shadow of a doubt, is telling us there was a virgin birth. Chapter 2, we're going to continue to read down, is reading the exact same way. Nowhere here does any angelic being, in no verse at all in the entire New Testament, identifies Joseph as the father. Only human beings with a misunderstanding identify Joseph as the father of Mashiach. No angelic being does it. And the way this is reading right here is clearly telling you he's not the father. Verse 15, and was there until the death of Herod, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken of the Lord by the prophet, saying, out of Egypt have I called my son. Now, right here, a lot of these Tanakh only brothers are going to try to say that Matthew has gotten this wrong, and Matthew has gotten this correct, right? Out of Egypt have I called my son. They claiming that when Moses went down there into Egypt back in Exodus, that was when God called Israel his son out of Egypt, which is a lie. When Moses went down there, he didn't call. It wasn't a call. He didn't call them. First of all, they were in captivity. You can't call nobody out of captivity. I want to see you. No one does that. That's just dumb. No one calls nobody out of captivity. You have to deliver them out of captivity, because their captors ain't going to just tell them to leave because you made a call. That doesn't happen. There have to be some deliverance. And I want to read it out the Bible. This is exactly what it says. I'll ask any Tanakh only person to show me where Moses called Israel out of Egypt, or God called them out of Egypt by Moses. It's just not there. It is not a call. He never called them. All right. Give me 1 second here. Let me grab the verse and show you from the verse, from the Bible, from the Tanakh, that it says that it was a deliverance. That it was not was no call. So when Matthew was saying, I called my son out of Egypt, this is not referencing going backwards to when Israel came out of the land of Egypt as a nation. This is clearly not what it's talking about. Give me 1 second here. Let me find the verse. This is going to be in Exodus. 1 second. This is where the Tanakh community, which is not led by the Spirit, is getting this information incorrect. Okay. Daniel chapter 11. I'm going to come to Exodus chapter 3, verse 7 and 8. Exodus chapter 3. We're going to read verse 7 and 8. And let me share my screen right quick and show you that this is not a deliverance. He didn't deliver. I mean, it was a deliverance. This was not a call. He didn't call the people out. Let me share my screen and show you from the Bible what this is saying right here. In Exodus chapter 3, verse 7. And the Lord said, I have surely seen the affliction of my people, which are in Egypt, and have heard their cry by reason of their taskmasters. For I know their sorrows, and I am come down to deliver them. Didn't come to call them, to deliver them out of the hand of the Egyptians, and to bring them up out of that land unto a good land, and unto a land flowing with milk and honey, unto the place of the Canaanites, the Hittites, Amorites, Perizzites, and Hivites, and Jebusites. So we see clearly here it was a deliverance. It was not a call. Okay. I know they're going back to this verse here, all the way back in Hosea. They're thinking that Matthew is speaking of Hosea chapter 11. I want to pull it right quick. So Hosea chapter 11 and 1. When Israel was a child, I loved him and called my son out of Egypt. They thinking that this is going backwards. This is a prophecy going forward. When he is saying this, Hosea is prophesying forward. He isn't prophesying, he isn't speaking of this going backwards. And called my son out of Egypt, because they cannot prove that again, there was a call. Just ask him that. Tell them to prove from the Bible that God called Israel out of Egypt by Moses. They can't. It's not there. And this is where the flaw happens right here. So Matthew was actually quoting this part of the prophecy here from Hosea 11, the last part, and call my son out of Egypt. This is what he was quoting, and he's dead on point with it when he's quoting it, because he's led by the Spirit, and the Spirit is not never wrong. All right, so let me stop sharing and let me go back to Matthew chapter 2 again here and continue showing you the accuracy of the renewed testament. This is accurate. Verse 16. Then Herod, when he saw that he was mocked of the wise men, was exceeding wroth, and sent forth and slew all the children that were in Bethlehem and in all the coast thereof, from 2 years old and up, according to the time which he had diligently inquired of the wise men. Then was fulfilled that which was spoken by Jeremy the prophet, saying, in Ramah was there a voice heard, lamentation, weeping, and great mourning, Rachel weeping for her children, and would not be comforted because they are not. Now, this verse clearly here is telling you that in Jerusalem, or in Judea at this time, you would have to have who? You would have to have Ephraimites there, and you have to have Ephraim and Manassites there, because Rachel and Benjamites, because Rachel was the mother of Joseph, who became 2 tribes, and she also fathered Benjamin. She died after she fathered Benjamin. So at this time in Jerusalem, according to this verse here, if Rachel is weeping for her children, that's Benjamites, Ephraimites, and Manassites will have to have been in Jerusalem at this time. This is what this verse is definitely identifying. So it wasn't just Judah, Benjamin, and Levi in Jerusalem at the time of the Messiah. You also have these other 3 tribes, Benjamin, Ephraim, and Manasseh as well. These are the children of Rachel. Going on to verse 19. But when Herod was dead, behold, the angel of the Lord appeared in a dream to Joseph in Egypt, saying, arise and take the young child and his mother. He's saying it again here. See, it does not identify Joseph as the father. It doesn't say arise and take your child and wife. Don't identify him as the father at all. See, it's the angel speaking. The angelic forces never identify Joseph as the father. None of them do. I want to see anybody find it. Find it anywhere in the New Testament where a being from heaven, an angel from heaven, identified Joseph as the father of Christ. It's not there, because he's not the father. Continuing, it says, and go in the land of Israel, for they are dead which sought the young child's life. Okay. And he arose and took the young child and his mother, again, and came into the land of Israel. No verse identify him as the father. I don't know what my brothers in my community is talking about. This man came through sex. My brothers in this community is off. You know what I'm saying? They got this wrong. But when he heard that Archelaus did reign in Judea, in the room of his father. So this is anti, right? It's anti. It's instead of, or opposite, example, instead, okay? Or instead of, in the room of, right? In contrast to substitution. This is what this is anti. Because people going off into think anti means against. Anti doesn't mean against. It means instead of. So we're talking about the Antichrist. That is a replacement Christ. This is instead of Christ, a substitution Christ. This is what this man in the future called the Antichrist is going to be. He's going to be a substitution, a false Christ. He's not funny. He's going to pretend like he's Christ by doing miracles and sitting up in the temple like he is God and he's Christ. This is what it is. That's why people are going to deceive. He's not going to be opposed to Christ. He is a replacement Christ. This is what anti means. I'm showing you right here the word it is used. The usage of this word is telling you what it actually means. It does not mean against. All right. So please stop saying anti means against. It's instead of a replacement. In the room of his father Herod, He was afraid. Let me read verse 22 again. But when he had heard that Archelaus did reign in Judea in the room of his father Herod, he was afraid to go thither. Notwithstanding, being warned of God in a dream, he turned aside into the parts of Galilee. And he came and dwelt in a city called Nazareth, that it might be fulfilled which was spoken by the prophets. He shall be called a Nazarene. Now, this is a mistranslation of this because Christ was not called a Nazarene at all. And he came into a place called Nazareth or Nazareth, which means branch town. This means branch town, all right? Because Christ is the branch spoken of in the Old Testament. 5 times in the Old Testament, it speaks of the branch. And every time it is speaking of the Messiah, because he is the branch of David, the descendants of the family, the kingdom line of David, which we have that recorded in the first chapter of Matthew. The kingdom line is there. And Luke gives you the regular line through his son, Nathan. And Matthew gives you the line through Solomon, the kingdom line, which comes through Mary, because Mary's father didn't have no sons. And that's why she's the firstborn son. And that's why her name is in the lineage. And that's why her son is eligible for the throne, because he comes through the kingly line, through a virgin birth, fulfilling prophecies in Isaiah chapter 7:14, and so on and so forth. And Isaiah 53. And I'm gonna get this. I'm gonna get this situation. I'm gonna get this scripture here to correspond this. But speaking of, he shall be called he shall be called Nazareth. And she shall be called a Netzer. This should accurately read, he shall be called a Netzer. And I'm going to briefly go into what a Netzer is, so you can understand. This corresponds right back to the first chapter of the lineage. It clarifies the lineage again once you understand what a Netzer is. Most of my brothers in my community don't know what a Netzer is. If you ask them what a Netzer is, they're lost. They don't know what a Netzer is. All right, let me go get it right quick in the book of Isaiah, chapter 11, verse 1. Isaiah chapter 11, verse 1. And there shall come forth a rod out of the stem of Jesse, and a branch, they go to branch, shall grow out of his roots. This word branch right here, see, this is Netzer. I'm showing you right here. This is what the word here for branch, it's Netzer. This is a Netzer, right? A sprout or a shoot, a branch, a Netzer, all right? A Netzer is when you have a tree and you cut the tree down to the trunk, and then next to it, distantly, not too long, maybe a few yards over, that tree sprouts out again out of the ground. Okay, that thing that sprouts out of the ground, a little bit distant away from the original trunk, that's called a Netzer. It branches up. That's what Christ is. He's a Netzer. And why is he? And why this agrees with the lineage in Matthew is because it came to a point when he reached to Mary's time, Mary's father, he didn't have no sons. The line with the male seed has been cut down. It's been cut down. It's been cut down from the male seed, and then you have the Messiah coming through his mother Mary, and then it sprouts up out again, a little bit distant away from the original trunk, but there is a connection there through his mother. That's what a Netzer is, and that's what he fits. He don't come directly from the trunk that was cut down. He's a little distance away from it. The distance in between him and the original trunk is his mother. There is no direct seed sperm descendants to birth him. That's why he sprouts out a little bit distance away from the original cut down trunk. It's a cut down trunk is what it is, and he sprouts out later. That's identifying the first chapter of Matthew to a T. Again, ask anyone what a Netzer is. This is exactly what it says. This is exactly what a Netzer is. You can go fact check me on it. This is what it is. This is what the Messiah is. So accurately, going back to Matthew, he shall be called a Netzer. That's what he was actually called, not a Nazarene, because the Nazarene don't drink wine, and Christ drank wine. So he was not a Nazarene. He was a Netzer. And this is what my community is lacking a lot of when it comes to this the biblical history of these words and what these things mean to confirm what the text is actually really saying. So let me come back. I think I finished that in Matthew. So that's what actually Christ was called. Not Nazarene, he was called a Netzer. That's what the prophets was talking about. The prophets, because again, not only Isaiah calls him a branch, Zechariah calls him a branch, and Jeremiah calls him a branch. So these are the prophets. And prophesying, he'd be called a Netzer. See, this is Nazarias. James said Nazarene. Now this is Netzer. It ain't not a Nazarite. All right, let me stop sharing. Go back. All right. Going almost into an hour. That's what I wanted to do. I think that's what I have on the understanding of who the Magi is. I think I read everything. Let me come to the comments because I called Samuel. Brother said, please explain Isaiah 48:1 completely. Appreciate it. Isaiah chapter 48:1. Let me grab that right quick. Isaiah chapter 48:1. Go back up. Isaiah chapter 48:1. All right. Hear ye this, O house of Jacob, which are called by my name, and Israel, and are come forth out of the waters of Judah, which swear by the name of the Lord of Yahweh, and make mention of the God of Israel, but not in truth, nor in righteousness. So let me get back here. So he wants me to completely explain just the first chapter. All right. 1 second, let me get my other book here. Get my other notes and go back into Isaiah chapter 48. Let's see what I have here. I know I have something on it. So Isaiah chapter 48:1, hear ye this, O house of Jacob, which are called by the name of Israel, and come forth out of the waters of Judah. So I think the understanding need to be brought out here is coming out of the waters of Judah, because that's when I was coming up in the One West back in the 90s. They were saying that everyone come out of Judah. And then this was the verse, this was the go-to verse, right? I think this is the part that needs to be explained. I think everything else is kind of really easy to understand, but coming out of the waters of Judah is the situation here, okay? So when you're clicking out of the waters of Judah, we have different codices and earlier printed edition of Isaiah that tells us that this means days, which come forth out of the days, not out of the waters, out of the days, comes out of the days of Judah. This is what earlier printed documents of Isaiah reads. So it does not read originally the waters of Judah. I want to see, can I grab real quick the because we know clearly that the tribe, then they all come out of Judah. That's just not, come on, that doesn't make any sense. The text doesn't say that they all came out of the tribe of Judah. That was what the One West was teaching back then, and that don't make no sense. They all don't come out of Judah. You know what I'm saying? They even went as far as trying to say that the Most High is a Judite by using this verse and incorrectly using this verse. So when Truncy can I go and get the Dead Sea Scrolls on it. But that's what I had on it so far. But I want to see, can I quickly grab the Dead Sea Scroll and see if what the Dead Sea Scroll said. Let me see the Dead Sea Scrolls. of Isaiah. Let me see. Isaiah 48 and 1. Okay. Okay, the Dead Sea Scrolls seem to be saying the exact. Let me share the screen and show it because I'm not trying to hide nothing. This is the Dead Sea Scrolls right here. Isaiah 48 from the scroll 1QA Isaiah. Hear this, house of Jacob. You who are called by the name of Israel and are come out of the waters of Judah. You swear by Yahweh's name and make mention of the God of Israel, but not in truth or in righteousness. So the Dead Sea Scrolls is saying the same thing. I don't see discrepancy. Let me scroll down. It's not marking anything out there. It's saying the same thing. Let me check. So let me check the Septuagint. One second. Let me check the Septuagint and see what that says. Real quick. So again, it's not making sense that everyone comes out of the waters of Judah. You have to show more. There would be more precept in scriptures to. He's the fourth born son, so he has the kingly throne. Kingly line was given to him, and the priestly line was given to the Levites. I don't see how everybody comes out of the tribe of Judah. So 1 second, I'm pulling up the Septuagint right now as I'm talking, and I'm coming to Isaiah chapter 48 and 1, and let's see, we have the okay, so the Septuagint reads, hear these words, ye house of Jacob, who are called by the name of Israel and have come forth out of Judah. This doesn't say anything. The Septuagint doesn't have waters in it. It just says forth out of Judah, who swear by the name of the Lord God of Israel, making mention of it, but not in truth, nor with righteousness. So the Septuagint doesn't have the word water in it at all whatsoever. It's not there. So, I mean, and earlier printed edition in different codices I found does not have, doesn't say waters, it says days. Right. So, I mean, that's what I have on it. You know what I'm saying? So that would be my explanation of Isaiah chapter 48 and 1. That does not read waters. Again, if anyone says it is waters and everyone comes out of the nation comes out of Judah, then you're saying that Jacob is a Judite, and there is no Judite before he got his wife pregnant and named his fourth born son Judah. So how is Jacob a Judite? He's the father of the 12 tribes. If he was a Judite, then you can say that, and it comes out of the waters of Judah. That should read the waters of Jacob. That would be more accurate. But again, that's my take on it. You know what I'm saying? So that's what the brother asked me to do the complete first verse, not the complete chapter, but the complete first verse, and that's what I've had. Let me see. If anybody got any questions, you can put it in the chat. I can even put the link in the chat. Wait a couple of minutes. If anybody want to come on and ask a question personally, they can as well. I'm gonna put the link in the chat. If not, I'm getting ready to shut it down. So the link is in the chat. Anybody want to come ask a question, you can. I hope I said something to edify somebody, give them more information on the text of the Bible. And I've been trying to come on every week, but every time I try to come on the following week, something always happens. The work goes over, and something always happening from preventing me to come on every week, because I want to come on more and more, not only every week, but trying to do more during the week. So, but hopefully I can, because I have a lot of information I want to put out and bring out, you know. And again, my challenge to the Christians, I've challenged Elder Mike to prove his Christian doctrine without using Paul's letters. And he said he can do it easily, but then he doesn't want to do it, right? I texted him. We went back and forth, and he talking a whole bunch of mess. And I told him that he wasn't living the gospel, because the text says in Peter, you should have an answer, be ready to answer everyone that, but the hope that people ask of you. So it seemed the Christian doctrine is from Romans all the way to Titus. I mean, all the way to Titus, or all the way to Hebrews, from Romans to Hebrews, because without those letters, they can't seem to prove the Christian doctrine whatsoever. And the apostles going around, they didn't have no New Testament. They didn't have Paul's writings to reference and all of that. They had to go with the Old Testament. They couldn't do it. So since Peter made it clearly that people was twisting Paul's letters and to their own destruction, why not just for the moment? I'm not against Paul. Just put Paul letters to the side right quick, so so I can accuse you, you can accuse me of twisting anything Paul is saying, because Peter said they've been twisting it. So let's put that to the side for a second, and let's use everything outside of Paul's letters, and you can prove your doctrine, because I can prove mine without using Paul's letters. I don't need Paul letters to use to prove the Israelite doctrine and the certain things that we're teaching. Not all of it, because certain brothers are teaching stuff that's off, like the virgin birth, like Christ coming through sex and more than one wife. That stuff is all off. So I don't need Paul's writings to prove actually what the Bible is saying or what I'm teaching. So can a Christian do that? Why do they have to use Paul's writings? And that was my challenge to any Christian out there. Can you prove your Christian doctrine without using Paul's letters? And no one has stepped up yet. Elder Mike, I reached out to a brother named True ID. They said he was some kind of smart Christian and he knows history and he knows his texts and all of that and books and stuff. I reached out to him. He's not responded neither. So, and whoever else I find that I think seem to be some kind of prominent Christian out there, if you know someone, you can let them know I have a challenge out here. Can you come on and prove your Christian doctrine without using Paul's letters? Because I mean, for years, I told Elder Mike, I said for years, the Christian community have excluded the Old Testament. At one point, they wouldn't even touch it. They wouldn't even read from it. They tell you don't read from that. It was just completely New Testament. So they have, for years, have been excluding the entire Old Testament. So what if I ask them just to exclude Paul letters now? What's so big about that? If you believe in the Messiah, you should be able to prove your Christian doctrine just from the Gospels. I mean, you have Acts as well. You have James, you have Peter, you have John, you have Jude, you have Revelation. There should be nothing there to prove your Christian doctrine, but none of them can seem to do it because they're not following the Messiah. They're following a man. And then, as Peter said, they're twisting his writings. Clearly, they're twisting it. They don't know what Paul is talking about whatsoever because they don't have a grasp on Torah. They don't know Torah, so you don't know what Paul is talking about. Paul could never be teaching against Torah. Never. He ain't crazy. Christ didn't convert Paul to go teach against Torah when Christ himself said he didn't come to destroy the Torah. If he convert Paul to go teach against the Torah, he's going against what he said he didn't come to do. There's no way Paul is doing that. That don't make no sense whatsoever on no level. All right, so I see nobody want to come on. I want to thank the people that are on, that came on, that are listening. Carl Samuel, Shabbat Shalom, brother. Thank you for listening, for coming on. I hope I said something to edify you. If anybody got any questions or anything you want to do a show on, you can definitely hit me. The email is at the bottom scrolling there. James101. You can just email me whatever you want me to do a lesson on or something you want me to research. I can definitely go into it and do it. Okay. So again, I hope I said something to edify someone and increase your knowledge in the word of the Most High, because we are told to grow in the knowledge of the Lord, grow in this Bible, and not stay stagnant. People are just teaching the same things every year over and over again. That stuff gets boring. People want to hear something new, something different, some different parts of the Bible, keep them interested, and not this same old boring teaching that's off. So I'm going to do my part to continue to give you the build up on different parts of the Bible and different understanding and different things I don't see no one touching on or speaking on, keeping this Israelite movement and this information interesting by coming with something new every time I come on. So that's my goal. That's what I'm trying to do every time I come on is to drop something new to edify the people. So with that, thank you, brothers and sisters, for coming on. Everyone that's listening now, everyone that's going to listen, thank you for coming on. Leave your questions and comments in the comment section. I get it. I'm going to answer it. I'm going to shut it down tonight. I'm going to go relax, keep the Shabbat. I'm going to go rest, get back and relax. And hope to see you, brothers and sisters, on the next one next week. If anybody want to come on our Shabbat class, I can send you a link. Just send me a email. Email me your email address, and I can send you out the link tomorrow. I'm in Los Angeles, so we go around 2 p.m. Los Angeles time. So that'll be like around 5 p.m. East Coast time. We go live on the Shabbat class. We go over the Hebrew. We deal with people's questions, anything they want to deal with. If not, then I go into a Shabbat lesson. So you're welcome to come on, chime in and check it out for yourself, see if you like it or not, and we can go from there. So with that, thank you, brothers and sisters, for coming on. And let me go to my close out. I'll be forgetting to go to my close out videos and stuff. All right, so I'm going to go to my close out videos here. All right, with that, Shabbat Shalom.
And if you don't know, now you know.
Thank you for joining us. All praises to the Most High God, Yahweh, meaning He is, I am, or causes to be, and His only begotten Son, Hamashiach Hawashai, or Christ Jesus in English, which means Anointed Savior. Please join us again. Shalom, brothers and sisters. Shalom, Israel.
Now you know.